This is Rona Palmer from eMaint Enterprise. I'd like to thank you for joining us for this month's Best Practices webinar. And I'm really pleased to have with me today Donald Radar Huntsinger, who's a project manager and material management consultant at Mahi Inc., based out of San Francisco. And he's going to be presenting today's topic, MRO Material Management, the Hidden Elephant. And a little bit about Radar. Though he's new to our guest speaker program, Radar has over 30 years experience in various business environments with TPS, TPM, TQM, LM, and over 20 years of CMMS experience. He's designed multiple MRO supply centers servicing the beverage manufacturing facilities, as well as formulating MRO procedures and processes for other manufacturers. He's also designed and implemented kitchens and restaurants for major national chains, including implementing a test kitchen for the American Culinary Federation. And some of Radar's credentials include culinary arts and business management, certified trainer for materials management, certified trainer for lean manufacturing, TPM, certified training, data analyst, LSS black belt, SMRP member, and MSHA certification. So hello, Radar, and thanks so much for joining us today. And maybe while people are logging in, you can just tell us a little bit about why you chose today's topic, the hidden elephant.
Thank you so much, Rona, for your introduction. The topic today, the hidden elephant, MRO Material Management, was near and dear to my heart due to the fact of the financial concerns that we are facing on a global scale. And what better area to improve than the MRO Material Management because of all the opportunities. So that's why I put together the hidden elephant today.
Well, that's great. I'm sure all of our listeners today can relate to wanting to save some money for the bottom line. All right, so before we get started, I just want to let our listeners know that we're recording the session, and we'll be sharing a copy of the recording with each of our registrants, and there'll be a Q&A at the end if you'd like to type your questions in. And now, without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to you, Radar, to tell us a little more about MRO, the hidden elephant.
Thank you so much, Rona, and thank you everyone for joining us today. MRO, or Maintenance, Repair, and Operations, Material Management, the hidden elephant. Over the years, a cornucopia of MRO material management knowledge and best practices has spilled across the business world. Next. Even with all this published knowledge and certified training readily available, there are over 50% of businesses in the United States alone that are not effectively managing their MRO supplies. On today's webinar, we will delve into why MRO Material Management remains to be the hidden elephant, along with 4 key elements necessary to produce a well-managed MRO storeroom. Just a quick definition of the hidden elephant. A hidden elephant is an English metaphorical expression for an obvious truth that is either being ignored or going unaddressed. This expression also applies to an obvious issue or risk no one wants to discuss. Next. So as we move on to the next slide, so where is the hidden elephant? Wally Wilson from Life Cycle Engineering stated in an article earlier this year that the person responsible for your MRO material management and storeroom operation plays a key role in the level of equipment reliability along with the outcome of operational efficiency at your plant. One of the items that Wally said is, he said, I'm sure if we had several $1 million of our own money invested in a storeroom, we would insist it was managed properly to ensure we're getting the most benefit possible from our investments. Great advice, Wally. Next. But it's only a storeroom. How can MRO Material Management play such an important role in the success of our business? Well, the next few slides, we'll talk about the facts. So let's just talk just the facts. In 2012, U.S. businesses spent more than $100 billion on MRO material items alone. And of this, 10 to 12 billion will remain on the shelf and potentially never get used. A study of 500 organizations finds that more than 50% of all U.S. businesses are not effectively managing their MRO supplies, as Marshall Institute looked at. We also look at, from Michael Brown at the New Standard Institute, that annual holding or carrying costs for MRO storeroom inventories can be as high as 20% of your inventory value. On top of this, the capital that is tied up in excess, duplicated, and obsolete materials can range anywhere from 20 to 30% of your total MRO spending, which means it's basically $1 out of $5 that you spend in error. We also look at how your MRO materials, only 5% of the items are used frequently. And Andrew Geiger from Marshall Institute shows that only 5 to 7% of our inventory makes up 90% of our inventory used for the year, or roughly 58% of our inventory has zero activity combined. There is on average 5 to 12% of part duplication, and on this I will discuss in a later slide of where this part duplication can actually arrive from. And lastly, I'd like to look at the cycle counting. The industry average is right around less than 70%. Personally, I've seen it less than 50%, and just so everybody understands, we want greater than 95% accuracy. So as we look at the next slide for some more facts, we will see that research has shown the majority of MRO items purchased by an organization to meet infrequent needs are unlikely to repeat. So when you say, hey, we were down and we had to buy this, let's go ahead and buy 2 or 3 or 4. Well, those 2, 3, and 4 are more than likely going to sit on the shelf. A baseline analysis of 100 organizations across various industries, including food and beverage, manufacturing, aerospace, among others, found that on average an organization MRO turns is less than 1 a year. It's about 2.5 times a year if you take out the inactive inventory, which usually accounts for anywhere from 90 to 95% of your inventory. So let's talk about the opportunity for process improvement, cost reduction, waste elimination, and increased value for your MRO material management needs. MRO material management has been around for thousands of years. Most of us in today's time just think about the Industrial Revolution, but as you can tell with the ancient Egyptian layouts, MRO and the fact of carrying items and storing items have been around since basically man has been doing business. So let's look at what's changed over the past few thousand years. Let's look at the Industrial Revolution on the next slide. During the Industrial Revolution, not much has changed. We still design and lay out storerooms pretty much the way the ancient Egyptians did. So these are 2 examples of today's average layouts with the pictures from the ancient storerooms, and let's move to the early industrial storerooms. As you can see, I really like the one in the left corner. They're pretty clean and ship-shape. The one in the right-hand top corner is through World War II when they were building planes. But let's take a look at current-day storerooms on the next slide. All these are separate storerooms from across the nation, from Alaska to the southeast to the Midwest. I believe one is even from the northeast up in the Boston area. Not much has changed or improved over the years. A lot of opportunity. Let's look at the next slide for the 4 key elements for success. These elements include cultural change, certified MRO training, documented processes and auditing, and CMMS. The most important key to success in my mind, and through all the documentation and reading that I've done and through personal experience, is a cultural change on all levels is most important. This cultural change must be throughout all the business model and must be done to create a standardized initiative for MRO material management and storeroom efficiency. The next key for success is certified training, or at least some training for your MRO material management team, so they can have storeroom organization best practices and standardized training. On the next slide, we will see the key to success: documented work processes, audit procedures that promote value-added improvement activities and career progression. And lastly, the fourth and final key is a computerized maintenance management system, or CMMS, or EAM, Enterprise Asset Management System, either way you want to say it, must be properly set up and utilized for all MRO material management functions, such as your bill of materials, receiving, issuance, cycle counting, warranty tracking, and so on. So let's talk about each one of these keys. Number one, a cultural change. I won't drown the slide because there is a lot here, but it will give you an opportunity to read at a later time. But most important, the cultural change for maintenance, repair, and operation, storerooms and spare parts, are a necessary evil that most businesses tolerate as part of doing business. That line in that sentence alone is the hidden elephant. The necessary evil that businesses tolerate as part of doing business. Instead of making it a necessary evil, the cultural change must be, we can make a material management team a profit center. So let's look at the next slide. Preparing for change is the biggest. I get a lot of questions sometimes. Okay, we want to change, but how do we do it? Well, the most important thing is you should get a cross-section of employees from across your organization to build a team to decide what you want to do and where you want to go, what barriers and issues that are being faced right now by your MRO team. So we suggest that you would have a team leader, a sponsor, and 4 to 5 team members to start brainstorming and working with new ideas to figure out how we want to progress forward to take advantage of the opportunities that present to us. On the next slide, we talk about material management training. You would be amazed by walking into any facilities and see the level of training that is across the facilities. Production personnel are being trained, office personnel are being trained, maintenance technicians or craftsmen are trained to a very high level, yet MRO material management team are usually left to their own devices with limited or no training whatsoever, which creates an area of opportunity for us. So here are some positives that can be gained with the proper MRO training. You can get better control of your parts and materials. You can increase your storeroom efficiency and effectiveness. And like I stated earlier, you can actually turn your storeroom or your material management team into a profit center. I'm not going to drain this slide as well, but there are some best practices, and I actually have a list of best practices on the next slide. But basically, you definitely want to have a storeroom that is laid out for, it will effectively reduce the waste and increase your storeroom staff utilization. You should also have a strong security system for your MRO material management team. What I mean by that is your storeroom should be locked, either electronically or physically. You should also be in a separate area, either fenced in or behind walls. So let's take a look at some of the best practices on the next slide. As you can tell, MRO material management is more than just hey, do you have that part that we need? There are a lot of processes involved to ensure that we have the proper product at the right price, at the lowest cost, and things of that nature. You have to have receiving processes. You should have warranty processes and housekeeping processes. These are just a few. If you look at the second to last one, you will see inventory PM process. This is a process that actually does preventive maintenance on some of your inventories, such as motors and bearings. So let's move on to the next slide. When we talk about key performance indicators, and some of the key metrics that are suggested are, next, MRO inventory value. That's your total value. Your turn rate, your cycle count accuracy, your kitting accuracy, how many issues, how many receipts you're doing. All of this information should be gathered and posted in a visual area so supervisors, managers, storeroom personnel, MRO managers, or anyone can see how the store is being operated. Next. So let's talk about a CMMS system real quick. This is an important tool that is necessary to gain a point of best practices and being a gold supplier to your customers as a MRO material manager or storeroom person. You would want a really good, robust system that will do inventory reporting. It will have asset health. Your security system can be involved with it. You can do preventive and predictive maintenance. But most importantly, it should be user-friendly. There's no sense having a tool that no one can use. Next. MRO Material Management Reporting. Examples of how MRO Material Management Reporting can enhance your maintenance and facility effectiveness and efficiency. Some of the things that I'd like to do are planned versus unplanned issue history. You can do this on a weekly, monthly, or annual basis. I like to do all three so you can actually see where you're at. This helps the planning department and your maintenance team and also production understand where we're at versus are we firefighting or are we on the proactive side. You can also do your budgeting through your MRO material planning, and more importantly at the very end is the Sarbanes-Oxley compliance for annual SOX audits that we do a lot in the corporations. So MRO material management reporting through the CMMS system is a huge attribute for the success of any business. Next. Another area that the CMMS system can help you with is cycle counting. I will briefly touch on the cycle counting that we do across a lot of the facilities that we work at. One of the key items that we see are people do a complete physical count at the end of the year, which can take a long time. For an example, if we have 5,000 line items, you can just imagine how long it would take to do a physical count. Versus if you have your inventory coded A, B, or C, which A items are your most critical items, usually with the highest cost, the longest lead time, or most critical to your facility. That ranges in about 10% of your total inventory, but has over 90% of the cost. Your B items are counted every 6 months or twice a year. They're basically your mid-range costs. They really don't have a long lead time, and they're not quite that critical to your facility. And then your C items are counted once a year, and they're really your less critical items, more like consumables. So let's take, for an example, you have 5,000 line items of your inventory. If you have your items all ABC coded, your CMMS system will be able to generate what you should count each day, which usually runs about 14 lines a day for 5,000 line items. Next, the hidden elephant. The opportunities faced by MRO material management today include safety hazards, first and foremost, safety hazards. We walk into a lot of facilities, as you saw in earlier pictures. You can barely move around. Things are above your head. Ergonomically, they're unsafe for your people working in the storeroom or your MRO Material Management team. There could be spill hazards or anything else. So those opportunities should be addressed first and foremost. Then we can start looking at the data side, such as your BOM or your equipment bill of materials. You can look at whether you have high levels of obsolete or excess inventory. You can also see whether your CMMS system is being underutilized, or you might not even have a CMMS system, which I suggest you gather together a team to decide if you should really need one, and if you do, what's the best out there. Most of the time, storerooms in your MRO Material Management team, because they are a necessary evil, are left with insufficient storage materials or handed down materials that they're having to make do with, or the layout for the storeroom is not functional enough to help your storeroom team gather the goods that they need, put the goods away. So look at your design as well. And lastly, the reactive maintenance culture that will end up bypassing the storeroom, where you end up having squirrel areas of materials because the last time someone went to the storeroom to get something, it wasn't there, so they'll get something now, they'll get two when they only need one, and they'll store the other one away or squirrel it away. So let's talk about the benefits of eliminating the hidden elephant. And everybody's heard of these six so many times in all the literature that is available for MRO Material Management. We hear the right part, the right place, the right time, right cost, right quantity, and right quality. Well, what does that really mean? Well, by eliminating the hidden elephant, you would have a more reliable inventory. You would increase the maintenance technician utilization by 12 to 15%. You can reduce the equipment unplanned downtime by 3 to 7%. You can reduce your overall material costs by 20 to 30%. You can optimize your inventory levels, and you can have a safer, cleaner, and ergonomically conducive workplace. So those 6 items that you've heard time and time again, this can actually occur once you eliminate the hidden elephant. The reference books for today's webinar are Maintenance Storerooms and MRO Made Simple, all the way to Maintenance and Reliability Best Practices, 2nd edition by Ramesh Gulati and Ricky Smith. We've also had some reference articles ranging from Marshall Institute by Andy Geyer. He had 4-part series, down to Wally Wilson in Lifecycle Engineering, and John Ross over at the Marshall Institute. So there is a lot of information available for people to learn more about best practices in MRO Material Management, and that hidden elephant that none of us wants to talk about, but we walk around it every day. Thank you so much, and I hope that everybody has a great day. If you have any questions, feel free to either send them to us now, or you can contact myself at radar@mahiinc.com. Thank you so much for your day and your time. And Rona, thank you. I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay, thanks everyone. And we'll be opening the floor up for questions, but we'll end our recording before we do. And we'd like to thank everybody for joining us today, and we'll share a copy of the presentation, the PDF, as well as a copy of the recording with all our registrants today. So again, thank you for joining eMaint Enterprises and Radar Huntsinger for today's presentation. Have a great day.